So Natalie from Lorain County Community College, welcome. You can feel free to unmute yourself and we welcome you to the user spotlight.
All right, hello, thank you. I am gonna go ahead and share my screen. Rachel, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's like in the edit mode, but
yeah, it's in
Yes.
edit mode.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. All right. So my name is Natalie Daniels. I'm the tutoring coordinator here at LCUCC. I'm really excited to share how I've been using Accudemia to kind of inform our tutoring policy. I made some pretty significant changes. A little about me: I started in this role here back in December 2023, so I'm pretty new to this role. I've been with the college since 2015. I've taught, but I worked in tutoring for another institution for a while. So December was my first time using Accudemia, and I really liked the dashboard and the ease for running reports and viewing the session logs. And I've really liked using those to kind of help inform how we approach tutoring here at the college. When I think about tutoring, I always think back to what the role of tutoring is. I know that differs from institution to institution. LCCC, we're a community college. We have between 9,000 and 10,000 students enrolled any given semester post-COVID. You know, basically our mission is to serve our community members. And we have a lot of great things going on, a variety of associate's degree programs. And a few years ago, we were the first college in Ohio to launch a bachelor degree program. And then we also have university partnerships as well. And we follow the typical fall, spring, and summer terms. Tutoring here at the college, we serve the student community members. So we have like the traditional community college students, a lot of first generation college students, a lot of parents, a lot of students just out of high school, a lot of students who are dually enrolled through Ohio's College Credit Plus program. And then we also serve the university partnership students who they've graduated from LCCC, but they're taking their junior and senior year courses from another institution, but here on campus. A few years ago, the college decentralized its tutoring. So we have a writing center that takes place in a building where most of the writing and humanities courses take place. Our lab science courses, which are biology, A&P, they take place in another building. So we have the tutoring for those subjects located there. Our math studio is in our science building where most of the math and physics and chemistry classes take place. And then our fourth center, it's named Tutoring Center because it's originally where everything was housed. So if anyone has any fun names for social science, business, and computer science tutoring, please feel free to share them with me. But that's where we kind of house the rest of those courses, and those have actually just been relocated to the building where most of those courses take place, so that students, right after they're done with the class and they're like, wow, that was overwhelming, they can go to tutoring to hopefully get some clarity and a little assistance. In terms of our tutors, we have tutors who are employed and supervised by the tutoring department. And then we also have space for academic coaches, and they're paid as faculty members to spend some of their time tutoring in the tutoring centers. So we've got about 40 to 45 folks. In terms of our sessions, we do a lot of in-person drop-in. That's kind of our meat and potatoes. And then we have quite a few online and in-person appointments as well for students who prefer a little one-on-one time. So I wanted to just give you kind of a glimpse at some of our recent data. I'll share the spring 2024 data later on in the presentation. But if you think back to when I said we have between 9,000 and 10,000 students enrolled here on campus, that's not even including our university partnership students. And you see that we served 632 unique students. You can see that we're seeing less than 10% of our students. So when I took on this role and I was reviewing this data, I kind of had a moment of like, oh, wow. My previous institution, we were anywhere between 25 to 50% of our students. So I was kind of wondering like, okay, why are we missing so many students? Even though our numbers have, gradually been increasing since what I'll call the end of COVID, they're still not quite where we would like them to be. So I took a look at a lot of our previous policies, and students were only allowed 2 appointments per week per subject. Drop-ins were capped at 2 hours, and that included independent study. So if a student came in and just wanted to use a space for doing their homework and maybe ask a tutor for help if they needed it, they had to leave after 2 hours. 3 no-shows resulted in losing tutoring privileges and required either a meeting with myself or with the dean to reinstate their privileges. And then students had to self-schedule online. So if they called in to make an appointment, they were being redirected just to log in and do it on their own. So considering my question earlier, what is the role of tutoring? This kind of takes me back to kind of like my own tutoring practice, and that is to support students, help them where they're at. And sometimes it's a matter of, helping them navigate things like using online platforms that they might not have used before, or being flexible when they need flexibility. As an instructor here, I know I've had students where they miss class because they broke their cell phone and their car wouldn't start all in one day, and they couldn't reach out and say, hey, I'm going to miss class today. So I thought about those students and how losing their tutoring privileges, how that would impact them even further. It would just be like another obstacle for them. So I took a look at the cancellation and no-show rates, and comparing this to like the actual list of students who were coming to tutoring, I could see like some students, they'd have 2 or 3 sessions, and then they'd have a couple of no-shows, and then they would disappear, probably because they realized their privileges were revoked, and maybe they either didn't follow up or they couldn't come in at a time when the previous coordinator or the dean were here to have their privileges reinstated. So I looked at this, and I also thought about if there are 209 no-shows in a semester, and we'll say that means there are 100 students maybe who have lost their tutoring privileges because of those no-shows. That's a lot of follow-up for me personally, and that's also a lot of trying to like navigate scheduling for both myself and the students to have those conversations. It also kind of made me think too, being new in the role, I was spending a lot of time on the floor with the tutors, seeing, how busy they were. And we did have a lot of periods of time where they just weren't busy. So I kind of was thinking like, is this no-show policy really helping us manage our centers, or is it just an additional obstacle to our students coming to get the help that they need? So I made a bunch of policy changes, and we're still in the midst of making more. I lifted some of the restrictions on appointments. So a student can have an appointment per day, per subject, as long as there is a tutor available, or we're offering tutoring in that subject on a given day. It's capped at 1 hour, because I know there are some students who, if they were allowed up to 5 back-to-back appointments, they would most certainly take advantage of that. So to kind of help out those students, or just to make it kind of a more welcoming place, we've told them too that if you're dropping in, you can stay in the space as long as they're a staff member to keep that space open. I removed the no-show policy, and students, if they want to schedule online, they can. If they want to do it in person or over email or over the phone, they can do that as well. I want to make it as easy as possible for them to come to tutoring, especially given that they have busy schedules, or it might have taken a lot on their part to make that initial phone call to ask for help. So I really want to make this just a very welcoming place. I don't want it to feel like they're being punished if something, keeps them from being here. So again, I love the data that I get on that initial dashboard. So we did see a huge increase in cancellations and a huge increase in no-shows. And I'm actually okay with that, because we have heard from a lot of these students who were actually very grateful that it was okay for them to cancel, that they weren't going to lose out on their privileges if they had to cancel an appointment, or we could just educate them about, like, hey, if making an appointment doesn't work for you, you can certainly come into a drop-in session. The same for some of the no-shows. We spoke to some of those students who they come to every tutoring appointment, then disappear for a couple of weeks after scheduling some appointments, and then they'd reappear and they'd explain what was happening. Sometimes it was a matter of they were sick, or they had something happen in their personal lives, or they weren't sure if they were going to be able to continue to because of issues with their financial aid or with their job. So those are students that we certainly don't want to punish or scare away from tutoring. So even though we do have this like significant increase, I'm actually okay with it. Spring 2024, we had actually a significant increase in our spring visits. The number of unique students kind of plateaued, but I'm really happy about that too. I know from my previous institution, usually there's a dip between spring and fall. So since we kind of plateaued, I felt pretty good about that. The number of visits that we had increased overall for spring. And that increase contributed significantly to the overall increase that we saw in tutoring visits during our full year, which was summer 2023 through spring 2024. And also a significant increase in overall unique students. It ended up being a 23% increase from the previous year. And we're all really excited about that. I will, add in my little asterisks that I know this is only one semester's worth of data. So then next year or two will really kind of indicate how much of an impact that this has had or will have. But we've seen, a couple of great things take place. Anecdotally, students have told me, or they've told my staff, that tutoring just feels more welcoming. They don't feel rushed. They also don't feel like they're being watched for the time. No one's coming up and like interrupting them, like just as they have that eureka moment in a tutoring session. They feel it's much more relaxed. And then it's also really helped with stakeholder collaboration with folks in counseling, enrollment, and our instructors. we're getting a ton of requests for workshops. My goal for this semester was to launch 8 workshops. We actually have, I think, 45 on the books now, based on instructor feedback and student feedback. And it's also created an increase in referrals to hire new tutors. Folks have seen that we have this increase in visits and that we're trying to see more than just, 6 to 9% of our student population. So they are actively referring tutors to us, whether they are adjuncts who are looking to fill in their time with some tutoring hours, or students who did really well in their classes, or returning students, or recent graduates. So that has been kind of awesome. So we're also experiencing a little bit of a hiring boom to help fill in the gaps and serve even more students. I will say I'm never going to promise that I won't ever reinstate some of the previous policies, because if we do start seeing a huge volume of students, then I can continue to use the great data I get in Accudemia to make any necessary changes to kind of adapt to the students that we're seeing and our overall volume. So I do want to just extend a quick thanks to Rachel and the Accudemia team for inviting me to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is tutoring here at the college. And I want to share my email address too. So if you have any thoughts on policies or suggestions, or just want to collaborate on anything, I would be more than happy to do so. So, all right, with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing.
Thank you, Natalie. That was great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and the changes that you all have made with your center. I think that I think that's a trend we're seeing a lot, where a lot of folks are taking a really hard look at their policies and seeing, like, is this helpful for us, or is it helpful for this? Is it helping the students, or is it or do we just think that? What are the greater impacts at work there? So that's really great. I'll give it a minute to see if anybody has any questions for Natalie, but I do want to thank you for your time, and thank everyone else for joining us today. Nick, can you grab that survey link and put that in the chat there, just so we can have people take that if they're interested. And then if there are any final questions as well, you can put that in the chat as well. And I do want to again reiterate, we are having our our Academic Center Summit next month in Orlando, near our company's headquarters. If you're interested in joining us, you still have time to sign up for that. It's going to be a great 2 days of some really, really insightful events. We have 2 great keynote speakers, Michael Frizella and Corey Hammond. So we're really, really excited about that. Perfect. So if anybody hasn't taken that before, that helps us make sure that we're keeping these sessions relevant and informative for you. So we want to make sure that these are helpful for you when we have those every month. But again, as a reminder, as Nick mentioned up top, as I mentioned up top, we are not going to be having our session next month, but we will be back in November. But as always, if you need us, you can reach us. Our emails are right there on the screen. All right, so I am going to go ahead and close out for today, and thank you everyone. Thank you again, Natalie. Thank you, Nick, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your week.